Welcome to Music Matters Podcast with Darrell Craig Harris, talking about all things music with celebrities, artists, music business insiders, and more.
Lucas Ward, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Darrell. How are you?
I'm awesome. So you are coming to us from Italy, and it's Romagna, is that correct?
Correct.
And you have a very interesting story. The group's name is the Silver Snails. You have a new release out called Speed of Light. Well, it's actually coming out, but you're doing singles first, which we'll talk about. And the duo, the group is with also your wife, with Elisa Fantini, I think, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So how are you doing? Italy sounds fascinating.
I'm doing well, and we've had a really nice, mild summer. Kind of, you sort of brace for the summers now all over Europe. I mean, there's wildfires and 100-degree weather, but it's been really nice in Italy this year.
So tell me about the album that you guys worked on, because it took you quite a while to get it completed, and it sounds great. The singles I just heard, I was checking out, are really, really fun. The production is awesome. So tell me how that came about, and I think this is actually your second album, right?
Yeah. So I guess I started my singer-songwriter quest with the first album, which came out in 2012. And I had built a whole setup in Italy to support me, studio musicians. I have my own studio. We were doing live. My wife was helping me do videos and all of this. And at a certain point, I had written a couple of songs for the next one. I was going as quickly as I could, but I realized I really wanted to do it in the US. So I went to Portland, where I'm from originally, and found a great producer by the name of Dylan Magierek. He also has a record label called Badman Records. And anyway, so we worked together. We finished the album. Part of the reason it took a while is because I would come over on trips from Italy, stay a few weeks, and then go back to my family. So, and then, I ran into some economic difficulties right about the time of COVID. So then, needed to spend some time gathering resources. Part of it, Darrell, is like I had a really high bar in my mind for production. Like I wanted to make the best music I possibly could and would just sort of spare nothing.
Right.
And so once I was 90% into that, I also wanted to finish it well, get good mixes. We had Greg Calbi at Sterling master it. And now comes the marketing, and that's been really fun. And we're going to play shows as well. So we're going full hog on it.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, the production, that was one of the first things that struck me. Like, it's world-class production. And also your music videos, too, are really fun because you involve your family as well. Tell me about that process. And on the album, mostly it's original, but you have the one single video, Kill the Radio Star. The video you guys actually did is super fun. Yeah. So let's tell me about that. You.
Oh, wow. So originally, my including my family was kind of a defensive move. We just moved to Italy from the States, and we're having little kids. And I really wanted to focus on music full time and see how far I could go. And I thought, if I don't include my family, then it's going to be kind of competing with the family. So I thought I could kind of co-opt the kind of friction that you would normally have by putting them in it. And what I didn't anticipate is that my wife has a real flair for things like, music video production. And she didn't know either. Of course, we all work on our musicianship, our singing, years and years of that, including the kids. So we have two daughters who are sort of late teenage, and then one son who's 11. Everybody sings, everybody's on the records, everybody's in the videos. But I mean, she wouldn't stop with us. We have like neighbors' kids and nieces and nephews, and So for one of our videos we actually put an ad at the beach, but only like 2 kids showed up. I was really disappointed. I had someone like flyer the whole beach, be in a original music video, looking for kids, around 10 years old. So that didn't work. But so it's like a tribal production, and so that's given the Silver Snails this kind of skin of like, colorful, sort of Fellini-esque videos, all ages. Also, some principles my wife injected where it's got to be for world peace. it should be all ages. I'm like, okay, honey, like
Yeah,
let's
yeah, because
let's go for it.
it affects the kids for sure too. But yeah, but the videos are super fun, and the styling of your videos and just the overall look is really cool. Who were some of your guys' influences as young musicians, young artists? Who were you listening to?
Absolutely. I mean, so my parents had vinyls, really good, like classic rock and sort of 70s. Well, the 70s, like it's all good almost. But anyway, um, so I had kind of a musical awakening, I would say, when I was about 11, and I was listening to Sergeant Pepper's,
Mhm.
and I just felt like my spirit rise, and my heart just, like being in love, kind of, like a really strong reaction to it.
Yeah, it's like
Uh,
your first love when that first touches your heart. It's like overpowering.
yeah, and I was already taking classical piano, I like Beethoven and Bach and
Right.
Chopin and stuff. I studied jazz, I mean, but anyway, so yeah, lots of diverse influences in terms of studying classical, studying jazz. Growing up in Portland, I was exposed to Irish music, live African music, um, and then the vinyls, obviously. It was so I think Beatles are number one for me. And Bob Dylan was always there, and the Rolling Stones, and things like Creedence, Pink Floyd for sure. I would actually spend my own like allowance to go buy new Pink Floyd LPs, and I listened to them over and over and over again in my
Yeah,
room.
that's actually a lesson in production is listening to the Pink Floyd stuff because it's just so well done, right?
Yeah, and they love it in Europe, and Roger Waters is doing concerts right now
Mm.
in Europe. But oh, also big influence. So part of my story is that when I was 12, my first day of high school, I sat next to a kid named Steve Smith, and we became friends, and he turned into Elliott Smith.
Ah,
And
okay.
so Elliott Smith was a childhood friend. And the thing about Elliott is he started recording on a 4 track at like age, I want to say 12. And so
Wow.
he was doing full like Beatles style records. He did one a year, freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year.
Mm.
Then he went to college and kept recording. And so I got a front row. So I was like right there watching his musical development. Looking back, it's so logical, like transcribe Beatles songs and find a few things that you like, REM and Elvis Costello.
Right. Figure out the production,
And
figure out the chords, the whole thing.
yeah, do a few. Like exactly what I sort of replicated that process intuitively when I really decided to focus. I went through like a 7 year, woodshedding phase, let's say, where I was really working on my voice. I was trying to decode pop songs because I studied other stuff. Anyway, and so, but not only that, Darrell, it was like the effect his music had on me. So,
Mhm.
we're teenagers. He'd sit down at a piano, he'd demo his stuff, and it just, it just swept me away like the Sgt. Pepper's record. But it was almost like sorcery because it was coming out live
Right. And you're saying you get kind
from
of
a personal friend.
you're getting a
Huh?
chance to watch the cooking process and the ingredients and
Exactly.
yeah, that's so
So
important. Yeah.
So fast forward years later, and I'm going to mention one more, and I hope I'm not dragging on about
No, it's fine.
influence too much. I'm not stingy with them, but I was at a point where I had finished a career, and we'd just come to Italy, and so I looked at my bucket list. What do I really want to do with my life? And the thing that came up was music, and it took me a while to say yes to singer-songwriting, but once I had, I think that was my model in my mind. I knew the power of it because I'd watched Elliot do it. And and then there was another one that's kind of in there, which is the Flaming Lips. So I
Right.
heard the Flaming Lips for the first time in kind of around 2001 or something, and they came out with Yoshimi and the one before that that's so good. And when I heard that music, it dispelled me of this idea that a lot of people had that all the good music had already been done, and then it was in decline, and you know what's left to do. When I heard the Flaming Lips, I heard what I thought was a progression from the Beatles, moving forward and updated in the
Mm.
sense that they studied the Beatles just like I did, just like Elliot did, to the minutia to understand the language of
Right.
it because it's still considered, kind of the top when it comes to pop music.
Yeah, isn't
And
it amazing too that that DNA runs through so many people's history and the love? Because I mean, those obviously those records are epic, but then it's like, okay, now what do we do? Where do we go with that? And how do we advance it? And the Flaming Lips, that style of thing is really, yeah, it's definitely in the vein of what you guys are doing, but there's a certain joy to what you're doing, and that also comes through in the videos.
oh, great.
What's your writing process? Do you and Lisa write together? Is it a solo thing for you? How does that work?
Yeah, well, Elisa writes songs and I write songs, but sometimes she gives me concepts, or she'll take something I'm working with and then she'll sort of put some structure to it. So like
Hmm.
she has her footprint is very deep on all of the seven melodies in terms of like why summer in certain languages. There's one that's it's the vocals are basically the Ave Maria prayer, and that was her idea because I got a melody.
Ah,
And
okay.
it was like a requiem for her uncle who had just died, who I
Hmm.
was close to. His name was Virgilio, who, by the way, is also Dante's guide in the underworld.
Ah,
The
okay.
poet.
Right,
So
right,
yeah,
right. Yeah.
there's like multi layers of heavy symbolism all around me,
Hmm.
and like any artist, I'm synthesizing that as well. But um, yeah. So you asked me about the process. So she will sort of give me inputs or challenges, I would say sometimes. But by the time I got to the second record, I really kind of wanted to have a free hand. And so I think premier, I'm first and foremost a musician.
Hmm.
So I write things on the keyboard, sometimes on the guitar. But since I started with keyboard when I was 10 and I still play it, so I added other things later, the rest of the rhythm section.
Yeah, but
And now,
that's kind of your roots. Yeah.
yeah. So when my hands are like really woken up, because you have to kind of play for a while. Like if you're doing other things and you don't play, they kind of,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
some
I'm a
rust.
musician too. I could totally relate to
You know what I mean? I got
that.
to the point in the studio where I could just feel something and play it immediately,
Yeah.
because I was doing it so much and doing it to record. Um, anyway, but for me, it's kind of about chord changes, usually on a
Mm.
keyboard. And then from their record, and I always record the idea. So I'll get an idea, and it's like something, knocking. And then I'll just record the fragments so that I can come back to it later. And sometimes the impression of those, like, like strong dreams, you want to go back to that thing, and develop it. Um, and so sometimes I'll sift through that kind of grab bag of recordings,
Right,
or
and kind of
sometimes
siphon it down to
sometimes I'll have a strong feeling that a kernel that I get on the guitar or piano is a good thing to go all the way with. And then, God, my process is way too long. I know that. Like I'm doing like a piano version, then I'm going to work on lyrics and melody and try and get that together and finalize the structure. Then I do a full demo. So usually using algorithms for the drums, but everything else playing in Logic, and then go to the studio and then edit and then, but we're talking about a lot of the songs on Speed of Light, maybe 120 tracks. So yeah, it's just
right.
too much. I was, um,
Are you self-producing everything, or do you have a producer that you're working with?
so I worked with this guy, Dylan Magierek. He was essentially functioning as a recording engineer and co-producer.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
And
And that's a great thing because it's nice to have somebody to kind of bounce things off of. Sometimes it's hard when you're in the middle of the project, you're immersed in it. It's hard to step back. And it's nice to have
yeah,
somebody that can kind of say, "Well, how about this?" Or maybe we try this. Or do you find that that's helpful for you?
yeah, Daryl, like recording is so much fun. Like what a privilege to go to a real recording studio
Right,
with
and
a
be
real
able to play
engineer
and
and
yeah.
share that. Like, I mean, I just loved every minute of it. And for the second record, especially, and can't wait to do it again. I would like to speed up the front end where maybe I'm just a little bit less demanding in terms of like arrangements and everything up front.
Hmm.
And we'll see, we'll see. But I do have that itch again because it's actually been a while for me. And,
Hmm.
getting LP2 out there kind of gives me permission to I
Yeah,
think
and
about
it's a
child.
process. Yeah, people hear they hear the end product, but they don't realize what goes into that. The
Yes,
writing, just putting everything together. If you have other musicians, it's like a whole. It's like herding cats, often, right?
yes. But I mean, thank God for all these talented people, and their contributions. I mean, like I'm putting a live band together now for the Northwest. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah,
tell me about because you mentioned you were going to be working on some live shows. Is that going to be for the United States, for Europe, or both, or how does that work?
well, we played kind of an ice-breaking concert in May in Italy. We had about 100 people at our own house for an event. And so in Portland, in the Northwest, we're gonna have an album release party in Portland. That's
Awesome.
already set up. And then, I'll be building a band just for that. Although these people, I did a tour of the Northwest a few years ago, and so the same guys mostly are showing up. So that'll be a little bit of a shortcut. But hopefully we'll play Seattle, Astoria, maybe Eugene.
Yeah,
So
and
we're calling it a
that's
mini tour.
yeah, that's such a great. I was mentioning that my brother lives up in Oregon, and I love Astoria. Those places are so beautiful. But there's quite a music scene. Like people, I kind of know that, I guess, about Oregon, but
Mhm.
especially in Portland, there's a lot of great clubs. There's a lot of great musicians. There's many musicians that we all know that are actually based in those areas. Was that kind of a magical place to grow up for you with this the creativity and the vibe? Or
When I look back on it and I list all the things I was exposed to, I can't believe it. Like I didn't appreciate it so much at the time, I guess, because it was just what was there.
right?
But
Yeah.
I mean, um, incredible music exposure. I mean, setting aside, becoming, childhood friends with Elliott Smith, like there was a guy, just as an example, the kind of thing. So I went to, there was a world-class like jazz education program at a high school near my house. They had a magnet system. So they had
Oh,
like
okay.
a whole staff of pro musicians and basically no students. So I would go there
Yeah.
and I was taking piano with the top jazz pianists in Portland. And I wasn't, I wasn't super fluent,
Right.
but I had started writing, and so we had this workshop. And I was really inspired by this musician from Ghana named Obo Adi, and he did the talking drum, and they
Hmm.
play like
Yeah,
live
it's
African
really
dance music
fascinating
on the
stuff.
grass
Right.
by the river in the summer. And boy, that was great. And I loved African music. I listened to Afro Pop Worldwide was a radio program.
Mm.
And anyway, so I wrote a song basically kind of copying the style, or at least as I heard it. And I
Right.
wrote parts and we played it in our jazz thing and then recorded it. And I was going to school with one of his sons. He had like 10 of them. And next thing I knew, I had an invite from Oboadi to present the song. He was, like 55-year-old, drum master, kind of local eminence. And then he invited me to join his band. And I didn't have enough musical confidence at the time to even contemplate that. If
Yeah,
I had
it's
had a
intimidating,
different
right?
attitude, I should have said yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But we also played it in the Arlene Schnitzer Concert Hall, which is like the biggest, and that was just like one kind of vignette. I mean, I could go on and on, about Irish and
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, there's so much in that area and and also being in Italy, I'm sure that that has to influence what you're
yeah,
writing and your musical
yes,
because that's obviously the history is so rich in Europe in general. Do you
yes,
find that is that something that's really fun for you being there, just getting exposed to completely different um, background and styles?
yes, Daryl. Like I didn't know how much I didn't know
Exactly.
about
Yeah.
about
Exactly.
history, about food, about stars and planets, because my wife's dad was an amateur astronomer. So we'd go to Sardinia and look at, the moons of Jupiter and the rings of Saturn, and we live out in the country. So I just became a lot more aware of what's what.
Mm.
And you know, that that's also been an important source of inspiration for me.
Yeah,
Um,
and having children too, because you kind of start
yeah,
seeing the world through their
thank you.
eyes, right? And that really, and as a songwriter, that can be a very rich
Yes.
palette to choose from.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest one. So my first song is Dancing with the Stars. In the Seven Melodies, we have a video for it where, Elisa's dad with the telescope is in it. He sort of kicks it off. But um, it was inspired by my daughter, who was about 5, and we were going somewhere on a train, and she was just kind of dancing like this to herself.
Hmm.
And I was feeling depressed. And I thought, what is it that animates little kids? And she was Dancing with the Stars. So that was the song. But it was, as soon as I had a chance to write a song, that's where I
Hmm.
went because it was the strongest like experience I've ever had is seeing, my child be born. Like,
Yeah, I mean that's
and,
obviously life changing, and
and it echoes. And so I love that song, Isn't She Lovely by Stevie Wonder, right?
mm,
And he's
yeah,
actually got you can actually hear the kid in there. And her name is Aisha, made of love. So Aisha is now a big time musician too, and joined her on stage as my daughter Jasmine is now doing.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's kind of
it's
a full circle moment in a way, right?
yes, yeah.
Mm.
It's hard to. There is a sense in which it's already been done, but it's very real for us, when we go to do it ourselves. And there's
Yeah, and
always
it's the family connection. Like you said, it's nice to involve them in what you guys are doing. Um, what's some things you've learned along the way and I don't know, what was your business background as well? Because you mentioned you had retired.
finance.
Oh, okay,
So
great.
I worked on Wall Street. I was a equity research analyst in the
Ah,
technology sector.
yeah. But I mean, that's the awesome thing about that is you learn a lot about marketing. You learn a lot about obviously business, which is so important as a musician. And I was actually going to ask you, what's some advice that you have for independent musicians? Because it's obviously really challenging these days. What's some things that you've learned by releasing your albums? And you guys have been quite successful online as well.
Hmm. Wow. I mean, there's so much you'd say. The first thing I would say is don't spend money on social media. In other words, do it organic. Now, I've
Right.
I've spent money on social media. I'm actually spending some right now, but so I know of which I speak. Don't do as I do. Um, the issue when you start, because you know, like it would be cool if we could just dispense with social media. And I personally am no longer doing TikTok or Twitter. I have a legacy Facebook thing, but the only ones I really look at are YouTube and Spotify.
Right.
And and I feel like because those are the only places where it really kind of means something to have fans. The
Hmm.
thing is, you kind of need Instagram too, because neither Spotify nor YouTube are messaging friendly.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
So,
tricky, and you kind of can't these days as an independent artist. You really can't get away from for doing some of that. Is that something that you've found, or
yeah. So, I mean, I started with social media from the beginning because I couldn't see how you could, market music without it. And also it held so much promise. But I guess the second piece of advice I would give, which I think is probably heavier hitting than the first one, is try to keep your expectations low.
Hmm.
I had expectations that were way, way too high. And I had my heart crushed to tiny little pieces
Yeah,
because I didn't get an ROI that I thought I was getting or that seemed reasonable or that was proportionate to everything that I'd put into it or anything like that. So, um, the only way that I can move forward now is because I've reset my expectations, and it's taken me years to do so. I know there are people that are just naturally more humble and they're not as grandiose. I think those people tend to do better as indie artists because they just kind of stay focused on what they're doing and then they go to the next thing.
hmm.
Um, and okay, here's another piece of advice. Don't try to do everything. So, like in my case, I like to do everything. So, write everything and arrange everything and, you know, old school recording and doing the marketing, no labels here. Um, Not that they'd want us, but
Well,
I
I think that they would, but I understand it. If there's nice, it's also nice to have the freedom and the
yes,
control because when you go with a
yeah,
label, you lose a lot of control, and that's part of
yeah,
the story, right?
yeah. But what I see is that it takes a lot of hits to the market to get anywhere. So instead of like just doing 2 albums in 10 years like me, it's better to do like what a lot of indie artists do, which is like one every 2 or 3,
Mm.
which means that you kind of have to move a little faster, to some extent have lower expectations. And like if unless you're really good at the guitar, get somebody else to do that, or bass or whatever.
Mm.
So I'm a big fan of outsourcing to like studio musicians, because you don't pay that much, and God, you get good results. I mean,
Well, and you're also getting maybe some ideas that they're bringing to the table that maybe you
yes,
haven't thought of, right? Again, it's having like that
right,
other pair of ears, the other pair of eyes.
right. I think a good step for me would be to be a little more collaborative in the actual upstream, the songwriting.
Hmm.
So if I take my own advice, and I am I kind of let go of the social media thing a little bit. I found someone else to help me do that. So I'm
Right.
involved. So yeah, I think if you can trust other people and outsource everything but what you feel is like your core value add. See, now we're getting into finance language.
Yeah.
Um, then you'll be able to have more frequency of recordings.
Hmm.
And I think you need to have a certain rhythm. And I think if you do things that way, you might as well look for a label as well.
Yeah, and
You don't get one, don't worry.
right. And
If
a lot of people that these
you
days too, as we've seen, is a lot of people are doing their own label as a full-on indie and handling. And I mean, you have a business background, so you know
Yeah.
publicists, you know that world, which is, I mean, that's exactly how we've connected. And it's a valuable tool, and kind of my biggest thing with indie artists is I want to make sure people don't get taken advantage of. And I think that having your business background is something I'm sure you've seen a lot of that with your friends that are also artists, and you kind of want to step in and say, yeah, don't do that. It's not a good,
Yeah, well, I mean, in my case, I've invested much more than I needed to in like legal. I mean, I've trademarked the band name, which seems really silly, but when I first started out, that seemed important. And that's a
Yeah.
business move. Trademark your band name. Um, so um, it would be great. I just can't see most people going to the lengths I have. So
Mm.
that's why maybe working with a label if you can. And keeping your expectations low, keeping the thing compact, and then see if you get organic traction on social media, playing shows, whatever kind of happens. It's going to be unpredictable.
And also it's also beyond just low expectations. It's just being realistic, but also keeping the spark alive, because we all have that. Your music grabs your soul, and you can't. It's almost to the point where you can't deny it. You have to create. You kind
Yes.
of don't have a choice in a way.
Yeah. A few years ago, I couldn't even listen to music. Now, like I can't wait to make another record.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and
that
it's
spark
it,
can
like
come and go.
right, exactly. The motivations change, and like you said, having children, even that can also bring a whole different motivation. And they're involved. You can watch them, help them sing, help them do their own projects. So that's
Yeah.
a really awesome thing. Um, Thank you so much for joining me. I know you guys, I really enjoyed the record, and what I've heard, and also the singles are fun, the videos are fun. I'd like to encourage everybody to check out the Silver Snails. And definitely the video stuff on YouTube is really super cool. I love the styling and the
Thank you
family.
so much.
Yeah, it was really
Thank you,
fun.
Daryl. It
Um,
was a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
well, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. So everybody, please check out Speed of Light when that comes out. You still have some more singles coming before that.
Yeah.
The latest single, I think the latest one was the video "Killed the Radio Star," which is obviously a
Right.
cover. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's very well done and super fun. And you guys can check out the video of that as well. So thank you for joining me, Lucas. And please tell Elisa I say hello.
Okay, will do. Thank you, Daryl.
Great. Have a great evening in Italy. Thank you so
Bless you.
much.
Thanks for joining us, and please consider subscribing to our podcast and follow us on our social media pages for guest announcements.